The flimsy envelope felt heavier than a brick in Calla's trembling hands. 3 years. 3 years of staring at a silent phone, 3 years of birthdays marked by an empty chair at the table. Now, here it was. Her son's familiar, looping handwriting spelling out her name, Calla Reeves. A tear blurred her vision, and she wiped it away impatiently. "He's alive, Lowell," she whispered, her voice cracking. She fumbled on the worn kitchen counter for a butter knife, anything to open the letter faster. "Jareth, he finally wrote to us." From the doorway, her husband Lowell said nothing. He just watched her, his face a mask of old grief, his coffee mug steaming in his hand. The silence of their small Wisconsin farmhouse was deafening, broken only by Calla's ragged breathing. "I can't wait to hear, maybe he's coming home," Calla said, her hope so bright it hurt. She was about to tear the envelope open with her fingers, ignoring the knife. "Wait!" Lowell's voice was sharp, not loud, but it cut through her joy like a wire. Calla froze, her hand hovering over the seal. "What? What's wrong?" she asked, a new, cold fear creeping into her heart. "It's from Jareth. It's his writing." "I know his writing," Lowell said, stepping forward. He didn't look at her, he stared only at the letter. He pointed with a shaky finger. "Can't you see?" "See what?" Calla snapped, her patience gone. "Lowell, I have to open this." "Look closer," he insisted, his voice dropping to a grim whisper. "Look at the stamp." Calla's heart hammered against her ribs. She brought the letter up to her face, her eyes scanning the simple postage stamp. It was a picture of a lighthouse, slightly crooked. She squinted, her focus tightening. At first, she saw nothing. Then, her breath hitched. Tucked just under the stamp's perforated edge, so small it was almost invisible, were 3 letters. They weren't written in ink. They had been scratched into the paper, as if by a pin or a fingernail. She ran her thumb over the spot, feeling the tiny grooves. They were not part of the address. They were a separate, desperate message. What she saw shocked her to her very core. The letters were S.O.S. The SOS burned in Calla's mind, instantly turning her joy to acid. "Lowell, what does this mean?" she breathed. The letter was a bomb, and the kitchen was ground zero. Lowell's face was grim. "It means he's not safe. It means he was right." Who was right?" Calla asked, but she already knew. The memory of their last day with Jareth flooded back, as sharp and cold as the November wind that had whipped his hair across his face. It was 3 years ago, at a bus station in Madison. Jareth, only 20, had fallen into a deep depression after losing his scholarship and his job. He was lost, drowning in debt and shame. Then, he found Jareth. A man named Silas. Silas ran a wellness community in rural Oregon, a place he called the Sanctuary. He promised Jareth purpose, community, and a life free from the pressures of the modern world. He promised to heal him. Calla and Lowell saw Silas for what he was, a predator. They begged Jareth not to go. "It's a cult, Jareth. He's just after your trust," Calla had pleaded. Jareth, desperate for an answer, had lashed out. "You're just after control. You never trust me." Silas understands me. He's my real family." Those were the last words he ever spoke to them. He got on the bus, and the silence began. They had tried calling the police in Oregon, but the local sheriff said the Sanctuary was a legitimate, private religious group. Now, this letter. The cheerful handwriting on the envelope, and the desperate, tiny scratch hidden beneath the stamp. "He's been a prisoner all this time," Calla whispered, horrified. "And now he wants us to open it," Lowell said, his voice hard. "He knew we'd see the SOS before we read the lie inside." With trembling fingers, Calla finally tore open the seal. The single sheet of paper inside was not what Calla expected. It wasn't handwritten. It was typed on expensive, cream-colored stationery, like a formal invitation. The return address at the top was simply, The Sanctuary, Bend, Oregon. Dear Mother and Father, Calla read aloud, her voice trembling. It is with great joy that I write to you. I am finally whole. The teachings of Silas have purified my spirit, and I have found true peace. Lowell scoffed, pacing the kitchen floor. Purified. He sounds like a robot. I have been given a great honor, Calla continued reading, her eyes scanning the page faster. I am now leading our community's outreach program. We are expanding, and Silas has invited me to bring my family into the fold, to share in our abundance. Here it comes, Lowell muttered, stopping to grip the back of a chair. Calla's breath hitched. He says he wants us to come visit. For a reconciliation ceremony. He wants us to see his new life. She looked at Lowell, her eyes wide with terror. That's not the bad part. What is it? He says. To show your commitment and to secure your place in our future, please bring your savings. An investment in the sanctuary is an investment in your soul. I can't wait to welcome you home. A cold silence filled the room. The letter was a trap. The SOS was a warning against the letter's own words. Jareth wasn't inviting them, he was being used to lure them in. He's a hostage, Lowell stated, the color draining from his face. They're using him to steal our money. Calla dropped the letter as if it were on fire. Or worse. What if we don't go? What will they do to him? Calla and Lowell are in an impossible situation. We have to call the police, Calla said, reaching for the phone. The real police. The FBI. Lowell put his hand on hers, stopping her. And tell them what, Calla? We got a letter? We tried that 3 years ago. The local sheriff in Oregon protects them. But the SOS, she insisted. This is proof. It's a scratch on an envelope, honey. They'll call us crazy, grieving parents. And if Silas finds out we called the cops, what do you think he'll do to Jareth? The terrible logic hit Calla like a physical blow. They were trapped. If they did nothing, Jareth was lost. If they called the police, he could be killed. The letter wanted them to come. The SOS warned them away. It's a test, Calla said, thinking aloud. Jareth sent the SOS to warn us, but maybe he also wants us to come. Maybe he thinks we're the only ones who can get him out. Lowell looked at the typed letter with disgust. They want our savings. Our little farmhouse. That's all we have. It's just money, Lowell, Calla said, her voice hardening with a resolve she didn't know she possessed. He is our son. Lowell stared at his wife for a long moment. He saw the girl he married, the fierce protector who had raised their boy. He nodded slowly. Okay, he said. We go. But we don't go like they want us to. What do you mean? Lowell walked to the kitchen window and looked out at his old, rusty pickup truck. They want our savings? Fine. We'll take it. We'll take every cent. He turned back to Calla, his eyes dark. We'll liquidate the farm account. We'll get all the cash. But we're not going there to invest. We're going there to buy our son back. Or take him. Calla felt a cold dread, but also a flicker of hope. You think we can? I don't know, Lowell admitted. But we're not walking in there empty-handed. And we're not walking in there as victims. This is a huge risk. The next 48 hours were a blur. They went to the bank in town and told a stunned bank teller they were closing their 30-year savings account for a family emergency. The teller, Maribel, who had known them for years, looked at them with worried eyes. Is everything all right, Lowell? She asked. Just fine, Maribel. "We're buying an RV," Lowell lied. The thick stacks of cash felt dirty in his hands, like blood money. They packed light, throwing clothes into 2 small bags. Calla paused, holding a framed photo of Jareth at his high school graduation. He was smiling, his whole life ahead of him. She tucked it into her bag. They didn't tell anyone where they were going. They just locked the farmhouse, gassed up Lowell's truck, and pointed it west. The drive from Wisconsin to Oregon was nearly 30 hours. They drove in shifts, the silence in the cab thick with unspoken fears. The flat farmlands of the Midwest slowly gave way to the endless, lonely plains of Wyoming and Idaho. "What if he's changed, Lowell?" Calla whispered, somewhere in the middle of Nebraska, as semis roared past them in the dark. "He's still our son," Lowell said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "But what if he doesn't want to leave? What if he believes their lies now?" Lowell didn't have an answer for that. They finally crossed into Oregon on the 3rd day. The landscape changed dramatically. The air grew thinner, the trees taller. They drove toward Bend, following the directions on the typed letter. The sanctuary wasn't in the city, but deep in the high desert outside of it. The paved road ended. They were on a long, winding dirt path for miles. The truck bounced violently, and Calla had to hold the dashboard. Finally, they saw it. A high, imposing wooden gate. It looked less like a retreat and more like a fortress. As they pulled up, 2 men in simple, tan uniforms stepped out from a guardhouse. They were smiling, but their eyes were cold. "We're here to see Jareth Reeves," Calla said, her voice shaking. "We're his parents." One of the men checked a clipboard. "Ah, yes. The Reeves. We've been expecting you. Silas is so excited to meet you." He smiled again. "He asked us to hold your cell phones and car keys. For mindfulness. This is getting scary." Calla's heart hammered against her ribs. "Our keys?" "But..." The guard's smile didn't waver. "It is the way of the sanctuary. To be truly present, we must disconnect from the outside world. Silas insists." Lowell, seeing Calla's panic, squeezed her hand. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the keys, and handed them over. He then gave the guard both their phones. "Mindfulness. Got it." The guard nodded, and the massive wooden gates began to swing open with a low, electric hum. "Welcome to your new home." The compound was not what Calla expected. It was beautiful. Small, neat cabins were scattered among pine trees. There was a large central garden, a dining hall, and a sense of absolute, unnerving quiet. People walked by, also in tan uniforms, and waved with placid smiles. They were led to the main lodge, a large A-frame building. Inside, a man sat in a high-backed chair, silhouetted against a large window. Lowell and Calla. "Welcome," a voice, smooth as velvet, echoed in the room. The man stood and walked into the light. He was tall, with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. He wore a white tunic, different from everyone else. This had to be Silas. "I am so glad you've come," Silas said, gliding toward them. He took both of Calla's hands in his. His skin was warm, his grip firm. "Jareth has spoken of nothing else. He is so eager for you to join our family." "We just want to see our son," Lowell said, his voice flat. Of course. Silas smiled. "He is waiting. Jareth, come and greet your parents." A door opened at the side of the room. Jareth walked out. Calla's hand flew to her mouth. It was him, but it wasn't. He was painfully thin, his head shaved. His eyes, once so bright, were dull and empty. He walked with a stiff, shuffling gait. "Mom. Dad," he said. His voice was a monotone. "Welcome to the sanctuary. I am so glad you've come to be purified. Calla rushed to hug him, but he stood stiffly in her arms, his own arms unmoving at his sides. He felt like a stranger. What happened to Jareth? This is heartbreaking. Jareth, honey, what's wrong? Calla whispered, pulling back to look at his face. There was no recognition in his eyes. It was like looking at a polite, empty shell. Nothing is wrong, Mother, Jareth replied, his gaze flickering to Silas, who watched them from across the room. For the first time, everything is right. I am free from the before times. Silas has shown me the path. Lowell stepped forward. Jareth, we got your letter. We brought what you asked for. He patted the duffel bag at his feet, the one filled with their life savings. For a split second, a flicker of something, fear? Warning, crossed Jareth's face. It was gone as quickly as it came. Silas clapped his hands together, his blue eyes gleaming. Wonderful! A true commitment. You see, Jareth? Your parents believe in your new life. Lowell, why don't you and I go to my office to process your investment? Silas said, placing a heavy arm on Lowell's shoulder. Calla, you and Jareth can get reacquainted. Show her your cabin, son. Calla's blood ran cold. No. We'd like to do this as a family, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Silas's smile tightened. That's not how we do things here. We must process the toxins of the outside world before we can be a true family. Lowell? Lowell looked at Calla, a silent message passing between them, play along. He nodded. Lead the way. As Silas led Lowell away, Calla was left with Jareth. 2 guards, the same men from the gate, stood by the lodge entrance. They were trapped. Jareth, please, Calla whispered, as they walked outside. The SOS. We saw it. We're here to help you. Jareth kept walking, not looking at her. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but his voice was almost too quiet. You shouldn't have come. What? Jareth, talk to me. They reached a small, windowless cabin at the edge of the compound. Jareth opened the door. This is your purification room. You will wait here. I'm not going in there. I want to be with Lowell. You must, Jareth said. He looked at her, and for one terrible moment, Calla saw a flash of the son she knew. His eyes were filled with tears. It's the only way he'll keep me safe. Please, Mom. Just do what he says. He gently pushed her inside and locked the door from the outside. He locked her in. Is Jareth a prisoner or a traitor? Calla pounded on the heavy wooden door. Jareth! Jareth, let me out! But the only sound was the scrape of the bar sliding into place on the other side. She was in a small, dark room. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, and a thin mattress lay in the corner. It wasn't a cabin, it was a cell. Panic seized her. She was separated from Lowell. Silas had their money, and now he had them. She sank onto the mattress, her mind racing. Jareth's words echoed, it's the only way he'll keep me safe. He was protecting Jareth. This was a test. Had Jareth betrayed them to save himself? Meanwhile, Lowell was led into Silas's office. The duffel bag was taken from him and emptied onto a large desk. Silas ran his hands through the stacks of cash. A beautiful offering, Lowell, Silas said, his back to him. A soul-cleansing amount. It's a shame Calla's offering was insufficient. Lowell's blood turned to ice. What does that mean? Silas turned, his smile gone. It means she failed the first test. She questioned the path. She held on to her before attachments. She is in purification. She will stay there until her spirit is clean. You locked her up, Lowell said, clenching his fists. I am saving her, Silas corrected. Just as I saved Jareth. He was so weak when he came to me. So full of your poison. It took months to break him. Months of purification. Silas leaned in, his voice a venomous whisper. He's a good boy now. He does what he's told. He even wrote that lovely letter to you. Though, I was disappointed about the stamp. He will be punished for that. The truth hit Lowell. Jareth hadn't betrayed them. He had been warning them, and now he would pay the price. You're not getting away with this, Lowell growled. Silas laughed. I already have. You're on private property, Lowell. The local sheriff is a dear friend. Your phones are gone. Your keys are gone. You have no money. You are mine. Just like your son. He pressed a button on his desk. The two guards from the gate entered the room. Take him to the reflection shed. He and Jareth can have a family reunion. Silas has one. Or has he? The guards dragged Lowell out of the lodge and across the dark compound. They threw him into a pitch-black shed. The door slammed, and he was plunged into total darkness. Lowell, a small voice whispered from the corner. Jareth. Lowell crawled across the dirt floor. Jareth, are you okay? He knows, Jareth sobbed, his voice thin. He found the pin I used. He knows I sent the SOS. He hurt Mom? She's locked in a cabin. We have to get out of here. Lowell felt for his son's arms. They were as thin as sticks. There's no way out, Jareth whispered. The walls are thick. The guards are always outside. He's won. No, Lowell said, his voice a low growl. He felt along the walls of the shed. It was old, built of rough-hewn timber. He made a mistake. He locked me in here with my son. And he locked me in with my tools. Lowell's hand brushed against something cold and metal. In the back of the shed, where Silas threw junk, was an old, rusty toolbox. And inside, Lowell's fingers closed around a heavy-duty crowbar. It's time to go, Lowell said. He jammed the crowbar into the wooden planks near the lock. Jareth, when I break this, you run to your mother's cabin. The one at the edge. Get her. I'll create a diversion. What are you going to do? Silas wanted our savings. He's about to see what we built with it. Lowell took a deep breath and put his entire weight on the crowbar. With a splintering crash, the wood around the lock exploded. The door flew open. Go! Now! Lowell yelled. Jareth, seeing his father's fierce determination, felt a spark of his old self return. He ran. Lowell didn't follow. He grabbed a can of gasoline from the shed, meant for the compound's generator, and ran straight for Silas's office, the duffel bag full of their money still on the desk. Silas! Lowell roared, kicking open the office door. Silas looked up, shocked. You! Lowell threw the open can, dousing the desk, the money, and Silas's white tunic in gasoline. You wanted our investment? You can have it. He pulled a lighter from his pocket. The guards were running toward him, but they were too late. Lowell flicked the flint. The entire plan is up in flames. Will they escape? The office went up in a whoosh of flame. The money, the desk, the curtains, all of it was instantly consumed. Silas shrieked as his sleeve caught fire, beating at it in panic. The fire alarm blared, a sound that finally broke the compound's false peace. People ran from their cabins, screaming. The guards, torn between the fire and their prisoners, were in chaos. Lowell used the confusion to slip back into the night. He ran to Calla's cabin. Jareth was there, desperately trying to break the lock. "Stand back!" Lowell shouted, using the crowbar again. The bar snapped, and the door swung open. Calla stumbled out, her eyes wild. "Lowell!" "Jareth!" "No time," Lowell said, grabbing her hand. "The gate. We have to get to the truck." The three of them ran, their lungs burning. They could hear Silas behind them, shouting, "Stop them! Don't let them leave!" They reached the guardhouse. Their truck was parked just outside. But the keys? "Jareth, the guardhouse!" Lowell yelled. Jareth, no longer a hollow shell, sprinted. He smashed the window of the empty guardhouse, reached in, and grabbed the keyring from the hook. He tossed it to Lowell. Lowell started the truck as the first of the guards reached them. "Get in the back," he yelled at Jareth. Calla jumped in the passenger seat. Lowell slammed the truck into reverse, then floored it, swinging the truck around. The heavy-duty bumper smashed through the wooden gate, sending splinters flying. They sped down the dirt road, bouncing and skidding, as the glow of the fire lit up the sky behind them. They didn't stop. They drove for 2 hours, until they hit a major highway and pulled into a brightly lit gas station. Calla, Lowell, and Jareth stumbled out of the truck and just stood there. They were covered in dirt, and they smelled like smoke, but they were breathing free air. Jareth turned to his parents. His eyes were clear. I thought I'd never see you again. I was so stupid. I'm so sorry." Calla pulled him into a hug, Lowell's arms wrapping around them both. "It's over, baby," Calla cried. "You're home." The next day, they walked into an FBI office. With Jareth's testimony, the sanctuary was raided. It turned out Silas was wanted in 3 states for fraud and kidnapping. Their farmhouse, their savings, it was all gone. But as they drove back to Wisconsin in their battered truck, they had something they hadn't had in 3 years. They had their son. They had each other. And that, Calla realized, was the only thing that had ever been worth saving. Thank you for watching this story. If you are moved, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more emotional stories every week.